Hi, I'm Matt from HockeyReviews.ca, and here we have the Brian's GNetik V blocker review. So this will be a bit different than what we normally do for or what I've done in the past for blocker reviews, only because before I would compare like the old versions for the 4 and then compare it to the 5. I don't have a 4 anymore. I sold my set a long time ago, way before this line came out, so unfortunately I can't do that comparison, and I couldn't find one just to grab to do it. So what we used to do is compare these two lines separately, but because I don't have the old one to kind of go over the upgrades and kind of talk about the differences, we're just going to compare these directly in this video. We also have the catching glove, and here's my version of the catching glove, and the demo version, which is this right here. So we'll also be doing that review in the future in a separate video, as well as the leg pads review in a separate video as well. This one is talking about this blocker and kind of comparing it to this one and which one might be better for you and just how this kind of compares and holds up. So before we jump into this review, if you're buying any hockey equipment and you want to support the channel and you live in the United States, check out the link in the description to Pure Hockey. Clicking that link, making a purchase gives me a kickback, helps support the channel so I can keep doing real reviews and making more content. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel, check out Patreon, buy me a coffee, links are in the description. Everything through there comes right back in the channel, and so I keep making videos and doing more tests. So huge thanks to Brian's for sending me this demo set. As you can see, it's a demo set. This wouldn't have been possible without them. Because of this, I'm able to test this out, not just borrow it from the store. I'm able to use the puck machine on this, test protection, bring it out to some training sessions with some kids, and their coach is a ex-SPHL, ex-ECHL player, so he can shoot too. So it gives a pretty good idea for me of how this gear will play. And when I say kids, they're junior B and AAA kids, so it's not like they're like 12-year-olds. They're still pretty good. So like I said, I'm going to be comparing it to this Optik 2, but the thing about this Optik 2 is it is slightly custom. It has a few custom options on here that are not stock. One of them is it has like the double thickness of the blocker board, or it has a thicker blocker board. Specifically, the plastics in here are thicker than what is on the retail one, so this one is actually a bit stiffer, and it's also heavier than what a retail one is as well, but it gives a bit more bigger rebounds than what a retail one does. It also has double padded in here, so it makes it a little bit tighter in here, and also for better protection. I found with my Optik 1 I was feeling shots by the end of its life, so I wanted to beef that foam up in there just so it would last a little bit longer, and it's done its job for what I wanted it to do. I guess we'll start off at this at kind of just talking about the direct differences between these two, and then I'll talk separately on this one in terms of how the performance of this blocker is and kind of things about it. So the hand position on these is basically the same. I took measurements from where your fingers actually line up. This kind of looks a bit misleading just because of where this fingertip protection is. It looks like it kind of sits lower on the board, but I actually took measurements of where your finger ends up kind of being right here compared to over here. And it also just ends up being really close to each other. I also did the test of this where to see how high the blocker board ends up on your wrist, and it's honestly, I'll try to overlay this next to each other, it's basically the same. So the hand position on these two is very similar and very much basically the same. Brian's calls it both, they're neutral. I'm not totally sure why they have two neutrals. I'm not sure why this one isn't a little bit lower or this one a little bit lower, just to differentiate them between each other. But they do play pretty different, honestly, when using them. So maybe that's all that they're really going for. With that said, you can see the massive difference between these two blockers from this view. Probably the best overall. I would say the sidewall is very different, and this one is stiffer than what this is, and we'll show that in a second. But the also board itself, you can see how much thicker this board is, but it's really where this is connected, because it is connected here. This board has a thinner side profile, but this piece also connects like kind of to the side, so you lose that. But when you look on the other side, you can see the board is still thick. It's just like it angles inwards everywhere, as you can see, where this one is just thick all the way through. And when you go here, you can kind of see it as well, where the edges kind of angle in. They say this is to keep this lightweight, but it just is what it is. This blocker isn't lightweight, but that's also because of the mods I put onto it, especially that thicker plastic that's going to add a lot of weight. This one is honestly pretty light, but again, I'll cover that in 1 second. Index finger protection, you can see you do have the adjustable one on here just to tighten that finger piece up. This one is not, but it's basically the same design, as you can see, all the way through. It's pretty similar, and you just don't have the adjustability on this one. not a huge thing. And honestly, their fingertip protection, everything has been pretty good because how it acts as a clamshell. Fingertip protection is like decent, but it could come down a little bit more. We kind of talked about it being okay because of like this clamshell, and it's not bad at all. And when you wear a glove, it does have it exposed a little bit, but it's honestly pretty good. And I've used Brian's gloves for quite a while and haven't had issues with my fingers getting hit, not just from pucks, but also from like people's sticks and stuff like that. And when you're jamming and stuff like that, you want that to be covered. And Brian's gloves have done a decent job with that. But again, it could be just a little bit better, maybe a little tightening piece right there to pull it a little bit more, but it's pretty good overall. So for paddle down on this glove, so if you lean back over here, it will come up. But if you just lean down like straight and just very naturally put it down, and see puck isn't getting under there or anything. It doesn't really get in the way, and it's easy to travel through. So paddle down on this works totally fine. If you straighten it out a bit, it's even a little better. But for me, just naturally going down like this, don't really have an issue. It does bounce because your fingers over here kind of hit first, but again, not getting in the way, and it's really easy to keep it like that, and you should have an okay job of doing it. Whereas for the Optik, it's honestly pretty similar. It naturally kind of sits there. When you drop down first, your outer fingers kind of hit first, and it kind of pulls up a little bit. But when you actually just start moving it and actually trying to, you're good, and it's pretty neutral like that. It doesn't really come off, and it feels pretty good. And as a comparison, the Ultrasonic, the fingers get hit first, but it seals very well too. I would say the Bauer probably seals a little bit better than what the fingers do on the Brian's, but it's not a big difference at all. And honestly, like, it's pretty comparable. You're fine either way. And the whole reason we're doing this test is because of this glove, and you can see how much it's off when I'm trying to push it down the most. The problem with this one is the natural state is basically like that, and it doesn't really want to roll over. You kind of have to like force it over, and so when you're moving, it comes off. Well, that stopped it. You can see it comes off, and that's kind of the natural point for this, where the other ones are much better for that, and I don't think you'll have an issue at all. Palm materials are both the same. Like, the palms are basically the same. This one is custom without a boa, which is why you don't see the boa there and boa there. Just for a personal preference thing, I absolutely hate boa systems. I just find, like, when I had the Optik one, I found that I would create pressure points, and like when I tighten this, I can feel pressure points here, and it's not like uniform all the way through, which is like kind of the point of it. So that's kind of disappointing for me. It's a personal preference thing. Some people absolutely love boa. I don't care for it at all. I also like my blocker straps to be pretty loose anyways, so you have more range of motion, but it is what it is. Now, I hate this little design here, and I should have called it out when I did the Optik 2, but I didn't really realize it because I always wore the Optik 2, that's just how it sat for looseness. But with this glove, when I cover up all of the Velcro here, like so, the blocker cuff is just like, it's too restrictive. So you can see I can't really bend out anywhere there, just because of like this cuff is kind of too restrictive there, and it's kind of annoying. You can see the range of motion is not that great. Now, if you loosen this up and you make it like that, your range of motion is considerably more. So again, tighten that up so all the blocker, the Velcro right here is covered. Range of motion isn't great. Loosen it up so it's just barely attached, and your range of motion is considerably more and better. So I don't like this because this is exposed, and it got caught on my clothes, and it got caught on my jersey, and that's just annoying. I hate when companies kind of expose that. It would be nicer if this side was the sticky side, and that way it would just stay on the inside. Now you might say, well, your jersey could get caught there, which is fine and true. So I don't know. This piece could just be a lot looser too. I wish it was looser, just because I like having all the Velcro always covered like this. It's just a personal preference thing, and that's kind of like what this is done here. But loosening off is my preference of how to wear it, and I'm just kind of disappointed there's exposed stuff here. I think the solution to this would basically, if you made this longer, like out to here, and then stop the Velcro from like right there, had that to be Gem Pro, just normal nylon. That way, when you did this, all of this piece would still be connected. That way the Velcro would be covered. And then if you wanted to go like this, that would still all be connected and you get a tight fit, but this part would just be nylon, so it wouldn't catch on anything. I think that would kind of be the best of both worlds for that. So maybe that's a change they can implement in the future. It's just small thing, but I nitpick stuff, right? So I look for improvements. That's an area of improvement. Again, outside, same connection pieces, everything here. It's just that board that's a real difference. And when you look at it right here, the other part you kind of see is a little bit more open cuff of this one. This one is a little bit more tighter, but it's honestly not a big thing. This piece right here is kind of sewn, and there's a gap right here of the foams, so it does kind of bend a bit more, where this one is just all one continuous piece. And you do have a slightly different liner piece on the inside there, but besides that, it's kind of a pretty similar overall makeup, as you can see all through here. The big difference is that blocker board shape and the sidewall. Even on the thumbs now, you do have both a removable pillow in each. This one's a little thinner, but same kind of idea. And the big difference that I noticed is this piece right here. So I believe this is their new Bri-core, and I'll kind of show a picture of what Brian's is calling this. It's like a composite. It's two foams layered in a composite or something. And this part is a lot stiffer than what this foam used to be. So you can see that is a pretty stiff foam and material there, composite, whatever they want to call it, where before on these, this was way too soft. And it is stiff here too. And this piece does seem like it's been redesigned. It kind of comes to a point where I think the old one was flatter. So that is better in that regards. But when you look at compared to an Optik where this is all flexy and this is stiffer than before, but it's still pretty soft and I can flex it and it really moves. And the big difference here is like when you go like this, it really kind of folds in. Whereas this one folds in a lot less, but it still moves, but the actual piece itself is a lot more sturdy than what this is. Now, as you can see by the puck marks on this, I never had issues with protection on the side of this. I make a decent amount of saves with the sidewall just because of my blocking style is kind of just like this, and as well as like blocking backdoor passes with this. So I make a decent amount of saves there, and I haven't had protection issues or anything like that. But this one is definitely an improvement, and that sidewall is considerably a stiffer material all the way through, so a big upgrade in that sense. If you're buying hockey equipment and you are located in Canada and you want to support the channel, check out the links in the description to Hockey Supremacy. Clicking that link, making a purchase, gives me a kickback, so it helps support the channel and I keep making content like this and doing real reviews. While I do like what Brian's does with their index fingers, specifically they have a piece of foam on the inside right here, so like right here all the way to here has a foam around there for protection, which will act with this to help stop puck impacts and everything like that. The overall design still isn't fantastic because you can see when you hold the blocker like this, it does have that gap under there, and a puck can easily fit under that piece and kind of hit it there. Now, if you do angle your hand, so if you have like your hand angled a certain way and it just doesn't sit like this, mine honestly feels like it always sits like that, but some goalies angle their hands in different ways. Now, if you angle it a little more, it does close that gap a bit more, but I don't really do that. And so I would still recommend the Optik to have a paddle wedge there because that will stop the puck, because otherwise that can fit right under there. And when we take a look at the GNetik V, that is kind of fixed a bit there. You can definitely see how that piece kind of seals off right there, and there's no way a puck is getting under that and to your fingers. So a nice move and adjustment there. That definitely does feel a lot better in that sense, and it will be more protected. So a huge fan of that. You don't necessarily need the paddle wedge for this one because it does do a good job there. I will use it with everything, but that's a whole different review. This is a nice improvement and something I'm really happy Brian's adjusted, because that's going to do a lot there. Now, I don't notice it really getting in the way when I was ever playing. I notice it right now when I'm trying to kind of just do this for the sake of doing it. But when actually using this, I never noticed it once getting in the way of anything. And it just does add that protection on your index finger. So this view shows off, I think, a pretty good idea of another difference of these two blockers, and that's kind of how far off the blocker board feels from your hand. So when we go over here, we can see like the gap of that, but when you're actually sitting right here, it does feel like the board is a lot closer to the top of your hand than what on the GNetik is, just because of that different board shape basically, and how the other one just is a bit thicker overall, and basically just how this piece comes down a little further than what it does on the GNetik. But when you do that, it definitely does feel like you're really kind of lower on the board, and the board isn't quite as close to your hands. So one of the things that I've mentioned in the past with Brian's blockers, and one of the reasons I went with a thicker plastic in here, is to get bigger rebounds. This is frankly put, one of the least rebounding blockers I've used. I think only the CCM E-Flex 4 was smaller rebounds than this, and then I didn't get enough testing, so I'm not totally confident that's the case. It just felt like that when I did use it. So what I'll do is overlay a bunch of examples of lower rebounds than what I am used to on this. And I was also questioning kind of the shots I was taking. I was like, well, maybe these guys just shoot less than what I'm used to. So I brought it out to the puck machine, put it behind a 70-mile-per-hour shot, and it wasn't crazy. Like, you would expect it to come off a lot hotter than it did. But I will say with that, the protection on this was solid. I never felt a shot through it. Now, this is a brand new glove, and the foams haven't been broken down or anything like that, like what happened on my Optik ones. But this one definitely, it felt fine on the 70-mile-per-hour shot through my puck machine, and it felt good. I felt nothing through it at all, and I never noticed that it would start feeling it. You can kind of do that with some blockers, like this blocker, for example. It's an ultrasonic. I can notice hard shots through this. It doesn't hurt, but I notice it, and I have a feeling the more usage, it's going to hurt eventually. This isn't the case, and that's pretty impressive and a good move by Bri-core. Now, this also has their Bri-core. I don't know if it's all the way through or if it's just down here, but that's how it sounds. And just as a comparison, this is just a plastic. I don't know what the plastic is in here, but it's a plastic. It definitely sounds different, and I definitely notice bigger rebounds coming off the Optik 2 than what was on the GNetik 5. This blocker's fine. It's just if you want bigger rebounds, this isn't really it. And honestly, this isn't really it either. The Bauer still crush everyone else regards to this. This is considerably better than for rebounds. Well, I should say bigger rebounds, but it's just a personal preference thing, what you want. I like big rebounds, so that would be my preference. Now, with rebounds, and something that I want to call out, you can see the different board shapes here. I measured like the space that these boards take up, and they're the same size, but it does look kind of different, and it always kind of looks different on camera and just when you're looking at it. But when you stand them up like this, they both take up the same, right? The thing I did notice a lot of, and this is kind of the in-tight blocker play, I noticed it more with this blocker than any other blocker I've ever used. Now, I'm going to have to start thinking about that more with all the other blockers because of how much I noticed this and I was impressed by it. But whenever I did an in-tight play, and I'll overlay them kind of right now, where I'm not pushing the blocker out, I'm not like trying to deflect it anywhere, I'm just basically blocking the shot for an in-tight like lower arm and stuff like that. The way that this blocker works basically, and I think it's partially to do just this curve, it does a very good job of just pushing everything out to the side. And it's never like too high or anything like that. This really does keep it kind of down, but everything there, everything was perfectly placed, and it was really consistent, and I really liked it. Again, not a massive rebound or anything, but it was always very, very controlled, and I got to give that control to some of the slope, because I haven't noticed that with my less sloped blockers like this one. And to be frank, I haven't noticed that really with this one as well. While the Bauer is more sloped, you can see, the rebounds on these come off so hot that I feel like it's not as controlled as what this one is. And where this one, I would get a shot in the kind of the same save selection over and over, and the shot was basically going exactly the same spot. And that was really impressive, and something that I noticed. When I notice something like that, it kind of means more to me, because it's not just something I'm looking for. It's like, wow, that I actually notice a gear, like I noticed the gear making a difference. So that's pretty impressive. Now, more onto that Bri-core. The blocker board on this is not the stiffest in the world, but it's a lot better than what they used to be, and it's a lot better actually than the Optik 2. So you can kind of bend that a little bit, but it's still very stiff all the way through, whereas my Optik 2, and this is with a thicker plastic, you can, as you can see, bend that down. And that's because this piece right here kind of goes in, right? So you don't have that total strength through here. As a comparison, while this one is a bit thicker than what this one is, the 2X is thinner than this, and it doesn't move at all. This doesn't move at all whatsoever. So just a comparison to those other brands. Again, no issues with this using it or anything, and I actually found myself to be able to get low blocker shots pretty easily with this glove. And even though that these two hand positions are the same, something about this definitely made those low shots feel really easy to manage and handle. And then because of this curve, anything that kind of went higher on the hand kind of just shot right back down. It wasn't a big rebound. So it was more controlled than what I'm used to on a more flatter board. So finally, we are going to talk about weight. And while I think weight and kind of specific numbers are always overblown in goalie gear, because it sits on your like arms and stuff like that, and it sits on body parts, it's not like a stick floating around. I noticed it on this one pretty significantly, so I want to bring it up and talk about that. This by all means is not the lightest blocker on the market. I'm pretty sure my Warrior is lighter. This Bauer feels lighter to actually pick up, but it doesn't feel lighter to use. So this glove is way heavier than what this one is, and the simple fact is it has that plastic piece on it, and honestly when I hold it like this, all the weight is right here, so you can definitely feel that. With this one, with the Bri-core, it feels like there's no weight here at all. That's pretty impressive because it is considerably stiffer than what like even this one is. So that's an impressive feat. So they still got like the light weight on it, and it still has that kind of strength there, so it will last longer. And it's just stiffer overall, so that is a nice thing. I noticed when using this glove how light it was, just moving it around and like making saves with it. It felt so light. It wasn't light to the point of like where I would make a save. I felt like the blocker was kind of twisting on me, or I felt like it was like coming off, or like kind of I didn't have enough behind it, because sometimes that's a thing where gear's almost too light and you kind of feel like it's either too loose or it's not like secured enough in place with like you kind of want weight behind it. This wasn't the case at all. This felt awesome to use, and I really liked it. And I'm a huge blocker stickler. I'm a picky person. I've harped about how good Bauer stuff is all the time. Me noticing weight on this and really enjoying it, like the time with it and how well it's balanced, says a lot, and that's a huge praise for me. Felt awesome on the hand, felt super balanced and super great. I'm not sure if adding that plastic piece to get bigger rebounds on this would be worth it for that weight increase on this glove, just because the balance is that good. When you pick these two up side by side, the weight to me is like this one's lighter, but not by a whole lot. But when you actually wear it, this doesn't feel heavy or anything. It's just the balance of this and where the weight is kind of just focused in on the glove itself feels so light in your hands and feels so good moving that it's really impressive. Again, I'm not weighing this and giving a number out for it, because I don't think that's actually important on goalie gear, because it's the balance of the weight and everything like that that's more important. So the weight number itself isn't the big thing, it's how it plays when it's on you, and this was very impressive for that, and I got to give them a ton of credit for how good this blocker felt. Once again, I want to give a huge thanks to Brian's for letting me use this demo set so I can make content and do the reviews on this. I'm kind of disappointed that they let me do that and sent this, because I really like this blocker, and while I have this Optik 2, if I had to make a choice between the two, I am honestly probably going with this one. And I'm very picky for blockers, and I use this blocker quite a lot. I like it. It's fine. It's good. It's not the best. This one just feels so well balanced. The rebounds are, yes, softer, but it's so well balanced. I love the shape of it, and everything just works really well on it. So I'm really happy to use it, and disappointed because really I wish this one was this one. So that's, for me, that's saying quite a lot. Now, is this the best blocker on the market? No, like I still would prefer bigger rebound. That's my personal preference. But with that said, I don't think adding this plastic piece to adjust that weight and to change the balance of what this is honestly worth it, because the board is still stiff enough that like you're still going to get better durability on this than what the old ones were and what like the stock one of this, because of that Bri-core. So I don't really feel like adding that thicker board and for bigger rebounds would be worth the weight change on it, just because this one does feel so much top heavy compared to what this is, and just the balance on this is so good that I wouldn't really want to change that. So that's a lot coming from me, and I think this is an excellent blocker and a solid piece. And if people are asking me for recommendations between the two, I think the only thing I can really say is, as long as you're okay with like a thicker board and feeling a little bit more away from the board, GNetik all the way. And me like just flat out recommending something like that is pretty big, where usually I'll tell people like pick what your favorite pieces are type thing. I would just say kind of ignore this and go with this. So that says quite a lot. Now, would this replace my Bauers and my favorite blockers? Again, I want that bigger rebound, but everything else is there, and I really like this. I have a feeling, based on my use of like the Ultrasonic and this, I might lean more to this. Again, I want that bigger rebound, but me not feeling shots through this, where I do feel shots through the Ultrasonic, and just the quality of construction and the light balance and everything on this. I should say also the better index finger protection here than what was on the previous ones, because this one is basically right up there and the puck wasn't going through that stick. All of that kind of combined makes this a very good offering. I'm very impressed. Now, I would love to put a true blocker, because I was really impressed with the true 12.2 blocker, up to test against this and see them side by side and really see if this would win out over that, because the true one is really good. But this one is easily Brian's best offering that I've ever used. And I'm going to say to date, just because everything they're kind of getting better at, but this is very, very good. It's very solid. It's a solid improvement, and I really, really like it. And I am a blocker snob, so that says a lot. So thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful. If this video was helpful, please reach out to Brian's on social media, let them know. We greatly appreciate that. Them lending me this wasn't a bad idea. If you do want me to review other equipment, please let other companies on social media know. Hopefully they can do demo stuff like this, because I think these are pretty helpful and pretty useful, and it would be greatly appreciated. Like this video, subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram and TikTok, and all that. Links are in the description. If you are making any hockey purchases and live in the United States, check out the links in the description to Pure Hockey. In Canada, check out Hockey Supremacy. Clicking those links, making a purchase gives me a kickback. Again, helps support the channel so I keep making content like this. Also check out Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, same thing. Everything through all of those come always back into the channel, so I keep doing real reviews and talking about equipment and not just marketing stuff. Thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.